All right, quick video just showing some of the highlights of a recent bareboat charter we did November of 2023 in the Windward Islands in the Caribbean. We rented the sailboat for 9 days and we sailed Martinique, St Lucia, St Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada. This year's boat, very similar to others we've rented in the past in the Caribbean. This time a 47-foot monohull made by Jeanneau, a French boat, about 5 years old, good shape. Down below, on the port side, good-sized salon. Over on the starboard side, have the galley for all of our cooking. And then up front, really good-sized V-berth with a private head, good-sized shower in there. Then looking aft, we had a berth on each of the two sides, one to port, one to starboard, each with its own head. So we had a total of 3 bathrooms on this boat, which was nice. And then for no reason at all, take a look under the boat. Got that keel, a small auxiliary diesel engine, and the rudder, pretty standard. The 5 of us flew into St Lucia, made our way up north to the Rodney Bay Marina, where we got access to the boat around 5 p.m. or so. We were able to just hang out, grab some dinner, and crash on the boat at the marina that evening. The next morning, while myself and one of the other guys did the yacht briefing and the chart briefing and all that stuff, a couple of the guys headed out to a supermarket, spent a bunch of money getting all of our food, water, and booze for our 9-day trip and getting all that on board. By about noon, we had all the provisions stowed away, topped off the water tanks, and headed out of the marina into the Caribbean and turned south. We had about a 20-mile sail. We were heading down for our planned anchorage for the evening at 2 volcanoes known as the Pitons. Unfortunately, it was a bit of a rainy day, though, on the way down.
And I'm wearing absolutely the wrong clothes. Cotton shorts.
What is? Cotton shorts.
The rain did let up, though, here on our final approach into the Pitons, and it was okay weather once we got in. The Pitons area is part of some type of national preserve. Not allowed to anchor, you have to grab a mooring ball. So we got ourselves hooked up to a mooring ball, and even though it was sort of cloudy and a little bit rainy, it was absolutely stunning here. Right before sunset, Per set up his hammock on the foredeck where he was going to spend the evening, but I think rain wound up ruining those plans, and he slept inside the boat for the evening. The next morning, we headed north. We had clouds, but some good wind, and I don't think any rain. It was a good sailing day. We had about a 40-mile sail up north to the next country up, which is Martinique. I'll take a minute here to introduce you to Basil, our mascot for the week. We bought a live plant in St. Lucia for I don't know what reason, and she sailed with us most of the week until, unfortunately, toward the end of our time, we needed someone to sacrifice to the weather gods to appease them. It worked, though. The storm we were in did ease up after we sacrificed Basil, and we wound up in good shape and got through that one, except, well, of course, Basil, who didn't do so well. Around mid-afternoon, we reached Martinique and pulled into our planned anchorage for a day or two. This is the harbor at Saint Anne, a very nice little town on the southern end of Martinique. This is not my style in terms of an anchorage. It's kind of like a Walmart parking lot. We counted about 200 sailboats here anchored right off of St. Anne. Cute little town, but not my favorite type of anchorage with so many boats. And we took a dinghy into the dinghy dock and walked into St. Anne, cute town, hung out for a bit. In the evening, we had a crew dinner at a local restaurant and hotel right on the beach. A nice little place. And then as it got a little later, the band set up, a local band singing in a mostly French. They might have been singing in the local Creole language as well. So we had some good music for the evening. Here's a little taste. The next day, we just took it easy, stayed at the same spot, checked out the town a little bit more, some French bakeries, had some lunch, walked all along the beach. We went in uninvited into a Club Med and kind of explored that for a bit. And then about 3 p.m. here, we set sail. Our plan was to sail through the night and into the next morning. We headed south. We were going to sail anywhere from 16 to 20 hours through the night into Bequia, about 100 miles south, roughly. It's all rainbows and unicorns for the first hour or so. Light to moderate winds and sunny. And then this sort of storm squall rolled in on us, and it got a little hairy for a while. Winds were up to about 30 knots or so, and you see here it ruined our planned sunset there, but it wasn't too bad. With that squall rolling in on us and then nightfall coming soon thereafter, you'll see here we all put on full upper body harnesses, and then we use a tether to physically essentially tie ourselves on about a 6-foot tether to the boat, and planned not to leave the cockpit all evening, and that no one could be up in the cockpit or on deck without being harnessed and fully tethered in. Essentially, if you go overboard in the open ocean at nighttime, there's very little chance of finding you. With 4 to maybe 6 foot seas, depending on the weather, maybe more, and total darkness. So you need to be tied in physically to the boat at all times, unless you're down below. This gives you a little feel for what it's like. You can see lights off way in the distance would have been the island of St. Lucia. There you see the red and the green lights at the front of our boat, but otherwise you just can't see anything. Unless, of course, you head down below. Pair making some dinner for the hungry crew. About 15 hours after we set sail in Martinique, the sun came up over who knows what island in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We still had a couple more hours to go, though, to get to our planned destination of Bequia Island. After sunrise, the wind picked up a bit. We had a good sail. And then around 9:30 or so in the morning, we pulled into the harbor at Bequia and dropped anchor. after about almost exactly 18 hours sailing nonstop through the night from Martinique into Bequia. And then came more fun with government bureaucracy and paperwork. And we were doing 4 different countries on this trip, and every country you sail into, you only the captain, for the most part, can go ashore and do all the paperwork with customs and immigrations to check into a country with all the passports of the crew and the ship's papers, and then the same process within 24 hours of leaving that country, you have to go back into these offices and do the checkout paperwork. It is a little bit of a drag, though, and we agreed that probably in the future for a 9-day sailing trip to include 4 countries might be a bit much. Just, it takes a few hours to go into all these offices, and every country's different, so probably wouldn't do as many countries in a 9-day trip again, but it wasn't too bad. After we got all the paperwork set and a little time there in Bequia, we headed south to a small uninhabited island called Petit Nevis, which used to be a whaling station, and some of the remains of the docks and the buildings are there, but otherwise it's just a small uninhabited island you can see here. We did a little drinking, had some beer off the back deck of the boat there, and hung out for a couple hours there swimming and snorkeling and had a few beers. Sunrise the next morning over, I think, Bequia Island. Pretty nice morning. We headed out further south. Destination was the Tobago Cays, which is supposed to be some of the best snorkeling and beaches in all of the Caribbean. Started out as a nice day, good weather, some nice wind, and then unfortunately the remainder of the day, was a bit cloudy and rainy and not a great rest of the day. You can see it coming up here right on the left-hand side. We started getting into these rain squalls just for the remainder of the day. It's pretty much what we dealt with. Here's a quick glimpse of one of the numerous squalls that we dealt with that day. Typically starting out by noticing the wind getting maybe 10 degrees cooler, and then the rain would start and the wind would build, typically up to right about 30 knots. It was very consistent throughout the 9 days. The squalls would really top out at 28 to 32 knots of wind, and they'd pretty much blow themselves out within 20 to 30 minutes, and then you'd have sort of a lull, light winds, and just rain for a bit, and you'd move on to the next one. Here's the Tobago Cays. As you can see, a series of small, mostly uninhabited islands and reefs in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Supposedly one of the best spots in the Caribbean for snorkeling, and also you can swim with turtles, which was pretty neat. One of the things Per bought at the grocery store was flour and yeast and whatnot to make Lebanese flatbread on the grill, and first time he did that was right here on our mooring ball at the Tobago Cays. He fired up some flatbread in advance of our dinner that evening, which we had brought to us by some of the locals there in the islands. We arranged with a local guy named Andy to bring us out a bunch of grilled lobster and all the fixins right around sunset. You can see there in the cockpit we had quite a nice meal. And then here, what we agreed was pretty much the best sunset any of us had ever seen that evening, our first night at the Tobago Cays. Sunrise the next morning also did not disappoint. This is same spot in the Tobago Cays, Baradel Island there, off to the left side of our boat, and it was quite amazing. Later that morning, another local guy came by selling freshly made bread. We picked up a couple loaves, So a pair could be off bread duty for the day at least. Right next to our boat was one of the best spots to swim with sea turtles. You can see Rob here snorkeling down. This is right from the boat with a turtle, and we did that for a while and got a chance to see and swim with several turtles. Here's another one. I had my GoPro with me while I was snorkeling, and really enjoyed these guys that morning. That same general area right next to the boat, we found a gathering of some fairly large starfish. Something I hadn't seen before, at least this large. Here's Rob here heading down and grabbing one of the local starfish. Here's one of the many small uninhabited islands there in the Tobago Cays that we explored. This one's called James B. Island. It was, I don't know, a quarter mile from where we had our boat. We would just head over in the dinghy. Here we are taking the dinghy away from, that's James B. Island in the background. And we're just exploring all around that general area. Came around this 120-foot boat named Bela. It's a windjammer cruise you can book. I think it's got 12 or 15 cabins on it, and they take you all around. We saw this boat several times during the week. Got a chance to check it out with the dinghy here up close and personal when it was anchored off the Tobago Cays. Later that day, we did some more snorkeling. We took the dinghy out to the reef area. Right near the boat was basically sand and grass, and that's where we had the turtles and the starfish. But out at the reef was coral and anywhere from 2 to 8 foot of water. It wasn't great. I think it was exaggerated a bit in the cruising guide how good it would be, but it was decent snorkeling, and we did that for a while. Since we were planning to leave St. Vincent and the Grenadines the following day to head down to Grenada, we needed to check out, and that means getting to an island that's got a customs and immigration office. And so we hired a local guy named Andy in his little home-built wooden speedboat to take us over to Union Island, which is part of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and check out at customs there. And while we were there at the dock, some guys here came in from spearfishing, and they had some grouper that they had just caught. So we bought some fresh fish. We paid them to clean the fish and fillet it up for us, and took that back with us to our boat and did grilled fish that evening on the boat. Another sunset, not quite as good as the night before, but not too shabby either. For our final evening in Tobago Cays. Next morning, we headed out of Tobago Cays and headed south toward Grenada. First stop would be the island of Carriacou. Here we are anchored the main harbor in Hillsborough Bay, in the island of Carriacou. Right there, outside the bay, you can see there's a small uninhabited island called Sandy Island. We headed out there. Here it is here. It's good for swimming and snorkeling right off the beach with some coral, which wasn't too bad actually. So we relocated the boat there for a little while and did some snorkeling right off the beach. It was decent, as good or possibly better than what we had at the Tobago Cays. Here's me and Bobby out at Sandy Island. And while several of us were out at Sandy Island, Gus and Pear spent most of the day actually on land on the island of Carriacou, traveling across the island by bus, by foot. They went over to this town here called Windward, where they have a local boat building industry. Got to hang out with some of the local folks on the island. And at some point, the five of us were in Carriacou, and we had lunch at this cool little place called Kayak Cafe right on the water. Had lunch, had a few beers. Wasn't bad. In terms of the beer, you can see here we drank Carib a number of places on this trip. Other beers that we enjoyed all week. This is Petit out of St Lucia. That was quite a good beer. Up in Martinique, we drank a fair amount of Lorraine, another good local beer. Stag is a beer we drank in Carriacou, actually from Trinidad and Tobago. And they have a very interesting marketing campaign. Apparently it's a man's beer. Fortunately, all five of us on the boat are men, so we had no problems. For our last day, we needed to get down to the airport in St. George's, Grenada. So we left Carriacou at about 3 o'clock in the morning and had about a 6-hour sail down. Along the way, you can see here we had to avoid this red alert exclusion zone for Kikum, which is a submerged active volcano that you do not want to sail over. Apparently, if it's semi-active and it's emitting a lot of gas bubbles, those bubbles can make the buoyancy of the water around the volcano much less, and boats will actually sink. And it has happened before. And then obviously if there's an actual eruption of that volcano while you're sailing over it, well, that would just be bad timing and also not likely a good experience. So we made sure to sail around that exclusion zone. The nighttime portion of the sail was quite nice, good weather, but then once the sun came up, the last couple hours into our final approach in Grenada, you can see lots of rain, real heavy rain, squalls. Up to 33 knots. We had our highest wind of the event and this final approach here into the marina.
You getting wet, Matt?
A little wet back here, guys. We got 30 knots. It's going to clear up any minute. Should be a good sailing day.
Eventually the rain did let up a bit and we made our way into the marina in St. George's. Here she is, all tied up safely at the marina. We had a great time, 9 days, 4 countries, not sure how many islands, not sure how many beers, quite a few. It's about 240 nautical miles total sailed, and a good time was had by all. So I guess that's about it. Thanks for watching.